Cool. Hello,
Oh,
everybody.
leave me. Time to leave me.
Yeah, I'm out. I'm out.
Come on. I just started.
I'm out.
This is the way it's supposed to start. Welcome to Black Advancement. I'm your host / moderator, Ajiman Jasante Goodman, for our symposium on Blacks and the Democratic Party. On the screen, as a part of the symposium, I have with us today Maurice Franklin, Antoine Smallwood, and then right below me, Brandon Coney, COO. Anyway, so before we get into what we're talking about today, I'll tell you what the Black Advancement is all about. The Black Advancement Incorporated is a nonprofit that is an organization that looks to combat problems within the Black community through action and dialogue. This, of course, is the dialogue section. So if you want more on our actions, let me know or hit me up later at one of the places that I'll tell you to go look at us for contacting us. Anyway, on to the front street and then on to the discussion. So Biden won, despite the historical failures in the past, even though he's old and he's white and he's male, in a year that was like the total opposite of that, he won, right? He won because people hated his opponents more than they hated him. He won because people didn't believe in a lot of the things that were going on, and they believed in him for whatever reason. And he also won, I think, arguably because he was the second man to arguably the best president we've had in our lifetimes. I'll let you guys do the math on who that is. All those things have some truth to them, but ultimately he won mostly because of Black people. We're just gonna draw the lines. He won because of Black people. As a matter of fact, the feeling has been Democrats won the Senate and the House of Representatives as well, mostly due to Black people. And the Democratic Party, anytime they've done their wins, have won a lot because of that. I mean, the pendulum swings is similar the opposite direction, where we'll get the blame for if someone doesn't win. See Hillary Clinton 2016. But for all that, the support that the Black demographic exhibits for this party, what has been passed that directly impacts, what has been passed, I should say, that has directly impacted our standing in America as far as Black people. What have the Democrats done on any level to help the plight of Black people in America as we're speaking? So that's one of the things that we're going to be here to discuss about Blacks in the Democratic Party and our future possibly in the party, or at least the way people see it from that perspective. So I can either let people go in, or I can start with a question and then we go in from there. If someone has something to say, they can just go like that.
No, I don't have anything right now. Yeah.
All right. So I'll ask the first question then. Why do Black people vote mostly Democrat in your opinion?
I would venture to say that Black people do that. If you want to go back to the advent of time from the standpoint when Black people were allowed to vote. For the longest time, we were not permitted to vote. And it was at the time the Democratic Party who championed for Black people allowed to vote and given that opportunity. And I think that subsequently, when looking back at it over time, is Black people have historically rested their laurels on the fact that Democrats have had their best interests at heart. Whether or not that's actually the case, we can get into that a little later. But I think that Black people are Democrats based off the fact that back to the times of when laws were passed allowing Black people to vote, it was ultimately Black people saw that as Democrats being their champion. But again, and a little later about what exactly have Democrats done for Black people in and of itself. They were the legislation for Black people.
Yeah, you went in and out a couple of times on that one, Coney, but it's fine.
I'll make sure to speak up. My apologies.
No, you're good. I don't know. It's probably just like, it just went in and out a couple times. I mean, like
it's just tech stuff. You were clear when you were speaking for sure, but it's just that it kept going in and out.
Yeah. But I mean, like, okay, from my perspective, as far as like the reason why Black people vote for Democrats mostly is because Republicans really don't give Well, I can't say that. They don't try. They don't try to get our vote. I don't think. I think that, and this is a generalization, of course, of Black people, but Black people are mostly are I think I believe much more spiritual and religious than most other racial groups, specifically here in America. So from the perspective of like morals and stuff like that, a lot of stuff that what the Republicans say, I think a lot of especially older Black people are down with that program. But I think that when you start getting into the social aspects of things, Republicans are saying a lot of stuff that go counter to everything that has been counter to Black people's progression, especially when it comes to the social aspects of America. So when it comes to things like vote, perfect example is the voting rights thing, right? Like they're like, hey, we got a Black president now, or we had a Black president now. You guys don't really need the civil rights voting bill, right? And as soon as they took it away, they started saying you can't have bottles of water in line. You shouldn't be in line for 8 hours anyway. I digress from that point. Point is that they do stuff that is completely counter to everything that we have fought and in some cases died for to get in this country. And because of that, I think a lot of Black people, at least the younger generation of Black people, by younger I mean like maybe from Nixon on, started trusting the Democratic Party more than they started trusting the Republican Party. Even though Republican Party, as some of them will throw in Black people's faces, were the ones that freed us from slavery. So.
Yeah, but that's not all the way true with that whole thing. We know that, but it's just, I get tired of that narrative. I think that all the points you and Coney both made are incredibly valid from my personal perspective. I think that with the modern Republican Party and for my lifetime and my parents' lifetime, and I'm probably accurate in saying my grandparents' lifetime, they've done things in your face where it's pretty direct about how they feel about Black people, right? And so it's almost like if they could get away with starting slavery again, or, giving you less or mistreating you, would just put it under the umbrella of mistreatment. They would do that openly. And it's disrespectful. I don't know that the Democrats have done anything on a massive scale for Black people other than, okay, yeah, here's some basic rights, but taking it the steps further where it should go, I don't think they have done that. But when you are looking at our voting system and what we have in terms of options, you have to be smart about what you choose there, because you have it where some people would have, if they could have again, they would have voted for Trump. And, some of them even voted for him in 2016. Some people even that I knew, to my surprise, it was like, what? And then, you listening to the rationale and it didn't make common sense. Then it's like, yeah. I wonder how often people pay attention to, if you take away financial gain. You often hear me talking about money being man-made, because I think human rights is something that everybody should be granted. Right. I think everybody deserves the right to be treated well. Everybody deserves the right to drink water in line, to cast their vote as they see fit, and to kind of have their stance. But instead, it's become something that's ostracized. And so people tend to not want to talk about something in terms of like politics and, their stances, because they know then their ability to have a civilized conversation around that and or a discussion, it goes out of the window. It resorts to name calling, it resorts sometimes in some cases to violence and beyond that. And I just think that when you look at the Republican Party, they've been an escalator for division, for, the whole thing. This is our country. You look at January 6th and what happened. And right now they're trying to still sweep that under the rug. And if you want a deeper look at America, what's deafening is the silence of a lot of white people that are like, hey, this was, devoutly, this was wrong. And why is this guy getting 8 months for trying to overthrow the country?
Yo, 8 months.
8 months, there are people who a cop might have sprinkled weed in their car and they have years of imprisonment for that. It's just, it's different things that we have to be unafraid to speak up for, because you have a lot of biases that have come into play where people are not willing to call out those biases. Right is right and wrong is wrong. We all know that. When we talk about Democratic and Republican, I often grew up wondering, why people are so married to those terms as opposed to what's actually happening around them. It's not about a utopian society. It's about being able to understand that, yeah, you know what? You have some things you're conservative about. You have some things, you're liberal about. That's cool. But right is right, wrong is wrong. Taking away somebody's ability to vote, passing laws with racial undertones under them, that's also ignorant, and we all know that. When you're looking at what Republicans have done lately, in trying to do things even with women's rights. You know what I'm saying? Reproductive. I can't speak today. Alabama, Mississippi, it was a bunch of states that were passing things surrounding abortion that I don't think people understand. In passing in law, it sounds cute on the internet. Everybody likes to go to social media and play. But once some of these things are passed in actual law and they start punishing people for things that they shouldn't be, then it becomes real. Now you're looking at life a lot differently. And you're like, man, I should have voted this other way, you know?
Yeah.
I also would throw this out there, and I'll let Maurice chime in with his thoughts if he has some, is that, you know, I believe we should have more than a two-party system at this point. And I want to see Black people in particular, and we're not all the same, no, we're not, but Black people have influenced the election. Yes, Black people is the reason that we got Joe Biden in office. Whether people want to admit to that or not, is facts, okay? We have to start looking at our power and how we can wield that. And I'm not talking about no Puff Daddy posts and all that bullshit.
Whoa,
I'm talking about people with, you know, real intellectual brain power that want to see the country go forward from the perspective of, hey, how are we going to make things better for humanity? That part is very achievable, and it's something we could do.
8 months. Anyway,
8 months.
8 months. Go ahead, Maurice. I'm sorry.
That's tough. And he probably got like 6 months of time served. Anyway, you'll never see jail, man.
Yo, months.
I think we continue to support the Democratic Party, at least to this point, more from a groupthink perspective. I think history, and it's popular in the Black community to do so. It's a very unpopular thing to be a Republican and be Black. And a lot of people don't want that kind of stigma, that kind of weight on their shoulders. So they just vote blindly Democrat, which is unfortunate. I also think, you know, we've been very naive to just continuously to blindly support the Democratic Party. As you all stated, there hasn't been a lot of significant change that has happened directly towards the Black community in the 60, 70 years or whatever we've been supporting the Democratic Party. Even back towards, you know, back from when Kennedy got elected, all of a sudden, you know, he started backing on, you know, beforehand, he's campaigning for all these Black rights. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. He gets elected, he backs off of it. Now he doesn't want to talk about it until his hand gets forced. So sorry, my daughter's yelling about something. Anyway, so yeah, and so I think it's no different than what you're seeing here with Joe Biden and kind of really what we saw with Obama. You know, a lot of times we push a lot of these agendas in campaign time, and then unfortunately for Obama, his hands were tied. Like, I feel bad for dude because I think he would have done a lot more if he had the opportunity. I think he could have pushed more, but I think he would have not gotten a second term had he pushed a lot harder that first term. And then again, his hands were so tied, there really wasn't much he could do. This situation with Biden is different. You got them both. You got all three. We just saw what they were able to push through, force through in 4 years under Trump. All kinds of foolishness. Supreme Court justices with 2 days left before the election. All kinds of foolishness. Pulling out of wars at a transition time, like foolishness. And yet here we are, scared and talking, oh, we need to talk across the aisle. We need to cooperate with each other. No, I'm not trying to hear that.
Partisan.
Yeah, I'm not trying to hear none of that stuff. And so I completely agree with Antoine that, you know, it's gotten to the point where the two-party system isn't working effectively anymore. And I don't think we should go all the way to the point of destroying and rebuilding. But at the same time, I think that we've got enough of a middle-class population of all kinds of genders and identifications and races and all this stuff, age groups, where we could form a very solid party that works for the middle class, that really kind of reflects a lot of the mindsets that we have, and start pushing that agenda forward. I also think there should be some changes to the way we do things in politics. And I'll touch on them really quick, and then we can talk a little bit more about them later, or we can, you know, but instead of, you know, electing various groups to have them discuss what our budget and what certain things are going to be, I think that that needs to be stuff that should be discussed similar to how we do in state and local elections, where they're like, look, do you all want this school? Do you want this park? Do you want this fire station or whatever that is? I feel like we should be doing that nationally. Hey, do you want this budget that includes this stuff for this next 3 or 4 years or whatever it may be? Do you want these specific things? And let the people make those decisions, not the politicians. Y'all can decide whether we go to war, all kinds of smaller, not smaller, but different things. But as far as how it impacts us every day, let me decide that. That's how, or let us decide
like
that.
a real democracy, and we're not here for that.
Yeah.
I wanted to tag on one thing that he was talking about with President Obama. And one of the things I'm supporting what he said, but it's an issue I had is that a lot of the Democrats as well, we saw during President Obama's time frame, they turned on him.
Yes.
And for key votes, key things, and you've never seen that before. Normally, it's your president of your party, you're supporting him, and he wasn't pushing anything radical. Right. And all of a sudden, it's just like, I don't know about that. And it's like, wait, is this person like a Trojan horse?
Go Manchin.
Yeah, that guy, he's from West Virginia.
All the way.
He shouldn't even be allowed to speak on the floor.
Maurice, I told you about talking like this. I told you about talking like this. You can't kill a whole state. You can't kill a whole state. You can't do that.
I'm just saying that the state of the population in West Virginia is relatively low. And we got one dude from that state holding up everything else.
So is the intelligence level, but that's not the end on that.
Moving on. Next question.
I wasn't gonna do.
There we go.
I said it.
But let me ask a
I'm in Pittsburgh. Come see me.
Yo, relax. Hey, relax.
Yo.
Hey, so
I'm in Frederick.
Offer something. Yo, no comment on my location. Look, the point is that no, but pointing off of something that you said, Maurice, like the idea of a third party, I've oftentimes thought that that's good, but I mean, I don't think there's going to get enough support for that. I don't think it's a realistic solution. Go ahead, Coney.
I agree. I do think I also agree with you that I don't think it'll get enough support. But let's back up a little bit. So everybody here has said that the two-party system isn't working.
That's true. That's not fake.
But let's talk about that. Is it not working, or is it not working how the people want it to work? Because at the end of the day, the two-party system is working exactly how it was set up to do. It is working for the haves. And there are far more have-nots in this country than are haves. But that's also the premise of our political system in general. Is that, yeah, we can talk about red versus blue. We can talk about white versus black. But at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is green. And all of those politicians stand to make significantly more money on both sides of the aisle by keeping things the way that they are. And ultimately, the two-party system is working exactly how it was designed to work by those people in power.
Do you think we should? Do you think we should then adjust how the politicians are compensated? And maybe that's a better solution than adding a third party.
I think that there should be limits on compensation. I think there should be term limits that are set. I think that there should be limits on how many times a particular bill can come up to the floor before either it has to be voted upon and or how many times it can be suggested. I mean, at the end of the day, I think there needs to be a lot of reform across our political system, but it's not going to happen because in order for it to happen,
they got to vote for it.
Power have to be the ones to vote on it. And they're not going to vote against their own self-interest.
No.
That's exactly what Cody, I was about to say, and who you expected to vote on these issues when they come to the floor.
Yeah, I'm gonna vote to limit my term to 2 limits. I'm gonna vote I'm gonna put a cap on how much of a raise I can get. I'm gonna get rid of universal health care for me and my family for the rest of my life. Like, get out of here. It's not gonna happen. I think there are a lot of changes that need to happen, but it won't happen because the people who are in power enjoy those perks.
No, I will say that one thing that I don't agree on as far as one of the bigger changes that I would like to see is the term limits, because I think that term limits are something that is particularly on the voters themselves. Like there's a phrase that goes around in political circles that says everybody's congressman and senator sucks except for mine, right? Meaning that they vote for the same people over and over again, get the same results and say Congress sucks. The Senate
Look at Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, I mean, Mitch McConnell is a
But they're
100%.
still trying to figure out how he won.
I have no idea how he won. I'm gonna be
They don't
honest
know
with
how
you.
they don't really know how him or Lindsey Graham won. They're like looking at the numbers and the
Lindsey
population.
Graham
Lindsey
won
Graham
by
was
like
even
20.
worse.
He won by like 20 points, yo. It was crazy.
They're trying to
Well,
figure out
well,
how them
but guess
dudes keep
what?
winning.
But guess what? It's Dominion's fault.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, old smoke and
Yeah.
mirrors. Look over here.
Over
Dominion
here,
messed
not
this
over
up.
here.
Yeah.
Over here.
Man, oh man, man.
So there was one thing that both Antoine and Maurice touched on that I had a question on and or further comment on.
Go ahead.
So we talked about the differences between the Republican Party versus the Democratic Party. And the thing that I've seen as of lately, especially lately, we'll call it the last 5 years, prior to the last presidential cycle that happened in 2016, the Republican Party in general and the Democratic Party, both of them were increasing efforts to be more inclusive. The Republicans were on a national stage, so were the Democrats on a national stage.
Especially in 2012. Yeah.
Especially in 2012, because
Yeah.
I think there were reports and papers that were done that ultimately said that if Republicans did not increase their base, they weren't going to win anything, and so they decided to be more inclusive, including more Black people, including more women, including more Latinos, trying to increase the amount of people they're reaching out to. And it's not really, it's somewhat of a question, but also more of a statement. It seems that from, we'll call it 2017 up until now, that narrative has changed. It's shifted to where they're no longer asking, and this is a two-part thing. They're no longer as concerned about reaching out to those minorities, but then also in the same vein, and it's a double-edged sword or a double-edged question is, on the national level, you may have one particular political party trying to do certain things, but then at the same time, you have to listen to your constituents. And your constituents who voted overwhelmingly in favor for 45 and his ideology. So I guess the question becomes, as a political party, are you more concerned with the overall ideals of what your base is and what your base stands for? Or do you now shift that focus and concentrate on what the voting constituents have said their priorities are?
They focus on corporations that donate to them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think they care about what their constituents want in general. They only care what their constituents are going to, who they're going to vote for. Like, their concern now is stay in power, keep doing what you want to do, and everything else just falls by the wayside. And I don't think that it was really a big, like, I understand what you're saying as far as Democrats and Republicans both trying to seem more inclusive, but that was clearly just a reaction as far as the Republican Party to respond to Obama being elected.
Yeah.
You had Michael Steele show up for a little bit and then he disappeared and nobody's seen or heard from him since. I mean, he's on TV all the time, but I'm saying, I'm just kidding. But anyway, like, he at one point they made him seem like he was about to be the next rising star in the Republican Party, and then they were like, "Nah, we're good." And I think they found that they can tap into that real deep-rooted racist white America, and they can keep just as many votes. They don't have to expose themselves for being as racist as they are. They can just hide behind a ballot box and be like, yeah, we don't support any of this stuff. Vote for 45. And all you do is pro-Trump this, pro-Trump that. They support all of their rhetoric. But in your face, of course, they're like, nah, we need to be inclusive. We need to come together. This stuff needs to change. But really, that's just not how they feel. So I think the Republican Party found that out. Like, they could find this whole group of people who are very energized, and that they will keep voting for them as long as they keep dangling that carrot of, yeah, maybe we should stop these immigrants from coming in. Maybe we should keep locking these Black people up. Maybe we should keep letting these officers off for killing unarmed minority citizens. Maybe we should keep changing these voting right laws because these Black folks and minorities are running amok here. Now they're starting to cheat these elections, and presidents aren't supposed to be women or Black. Like, that's not American. So I think that's what they're going for. and they don't care anymore about what their party stands for. That's not a thing for them anymore. To them, it's about retaining power, and that's
Correct.
solely what it is.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with anything else.
And
If
they,
if I could just come in right after that, Antoine, and I'll let you go.
oh yeah.
Just to wrap it back around, that's, I believe, one of the bigger reasons why Black people vote for Democrats. And that might be the sole reason why they do it. Like, seriously.
But there's
Seriously. I'm
But
gonna let
that- but
Antoine
that-
cook, but
I'll say this real quick before Antoine jumps. Democrats is the same thing.
I
Yes.
don't disagree, but they don't do it to the same extent.
I disagree.
not? They do it worse.
No,
I
They
think they
smile
do
in your
it.
face.
I think they do it to the same
Let's come
extent,
back to
if
it.
not more.
let's come back to it. Hold on, Antoine, go ahead and cook, man.
No, I'm just going to say simple that I'm agreeing with Maurice 1,000,000,000%. The rise of white nationalism in 45, and they saw the swelling crowds, and they saw the Charlottesville, Virginia, and university campus, and even up here in New York, shit was popping off and things, and you start to see all of that happen, and people are like, why are we asking? Why are we pretending anymore? They went basically started playing go to hell ball with Democratic, Republican, and they said, you know what, we're going to take what we want. And then guess what? It was working, because look at all the things that happened under 45, right? From 16 until Biden came into office. So many things that the regular person still not has even heard of. You know what I'm saying? Laws that were being passed, money exchanging hands, a lot of illegal things that have just, and not just illegal, like, hey, that's bad, but like things that could change the course of history potentially. And so January 6th was just like the icing on the cake for that with them. And nobody was really doing anything. Your Nancy Pelosi's weren't doing anything. It wasn't about constituencies or anything like that. It's just about, hey, we're coming to take over. Who's going to stop us? And so I think that when you look at that, you see America's values. When you look at that, you see the people who stood into opposition to Cap, no matter how much clarity he tried to provide into what he was standing for. When you look at that, you see all the people that had a problem with Obama being president, not just once, but twice, because they said, okay, the first time, this is who he beat, McCain, whatever, cool. Now we're going to go get Mitt, and Mitt is supposed to be smart and a businessman, all this other stuff. He beats him. And then it's rage that kind of took over. And I'm telling you, I've seen it in person, people that were like, white male anger. And
why are you entitled? The hoods out after that, yo.
Yeah.
After that second term, they were like, it's time to get the hoods out.
They went to the trunk and got the hoods.
Yeah, there's only one way to stop this. Because
When
Hillary,
they got mad when Mittens failed. They said when Mittens went down.
yeah, they were like, if old white men with money can't win this, this is about to get bad.
Exactly.
And they saw Hillary on the horizon. They saw what's his name? They saw Bernie on the horizon. They saw Warren on the horizon. They were like, yo,
we can't have this.
Stop. So
we can't have this.
They got the hood out.
And it was crazy. And it's crazy. Real quick, Coney, I just want to say this. It was crazy to me. It was real crazy to me because I still saw Democrats talking about bipartisanship and all this other stuff. I'm like, no, there's about 2 seconds from being bloodshed here. You have people who are in, Congress and other places with guns. The same people that are talking about Blue Lives Matter, they killed cops.
They killed a cop.
And when you look at
hold on, 8 months. 8 months for that.
That is what I'm saying. You see people still trying to justify that. You see people saying that's worse. Oh, here, look at these cops here, and look at the military, and also look at our federal government. These white nationalists that have been identified and getting kicked out, but are they really getting kicked out? You think they're the only ones? Or they're the ones who just became vocal because, again, behind 45, a lot of people started to show you who they actually were. They don't give a fuck about, Democratic, Republican values. They're just literally looking at it from a perspective of, you know what? We want to take things back to the way it was. So
yeah, they're taking our country, and we're gonna take it back.
Right.
They fought with themselves over nothing.
So y'all don't think that that's why black people don't fight, don't vote Democrat, huh? Y'all was like, no, that ain't it. Y'all don't think none of that's got to do with black people just being like, you know what? I don't
know. Because
no, I don't.
Again, because when you look at it historically, the Democratic Party has still really done nothing. All they've done is say they're going to do this, talk about doing that, and that's worse. I'd rather you just be mean to me, and I know exactly where you stand. So when we see each other, I'm either ready to hook off on you or walk away. The Democrats, you never really know. You're like, I feel like I should hook off on you, but I'm not sure because you're saying you want a hug. But as soon as I go in for the hug, you hit me with an uppercut. Now I'm mad.
Yeah,
'Cause,
Yeah.
no, you,
I am
So
by
I
no
should-
means saying that the Democratic Party is looking
Uh,
out for,
Right.
for Black people. But what I am saying is that our chances, at least the last 40 years, have been better with that party, which is why I think that a lot of Black people vote for it.
Disagree,
Because you know for a
but
fact that the
disagree,
other side
we
isn't
can't-
going to. You know
Yeah,
for a
I
fact
mean-
the other side isn't going to.
I mean,
I'm
at
saying
the end of the
people in general. I'm not talking about necessarily us. Four. I'm just saying.
I mean, I'll say at the end of the day, we can agree to disagree because, you know, I say that under the guise that you have history on your side to be able to say that from the standpoint of look at the last 40 years and, you know, look who Democrats have supported. Who's to say that things may not have changed over the last 40 years if Democrats, instead of voting blindly if Black people, instead of voting blindly for Democrats, started voting for Republicans? Who's to say that the Republicans who were in power may not have made changes that directly affected Black people? Because Democrats have not. I mean,
Well, there's plenty. I'm gonna challenge that statement. Right? I'm gonna bring balance to that. There's plenty of Black people who did vote for Republicans, right? And then what changes were made, right? But think about in our lifetime alone, you've had Biden, you've had Obama, you've had Clinton.
Yeah.
The rest of that time, you've had. I'm assuming we're the same age. I don't think you're like, you know, but you know, it's like, you know,
George
you
Bush in there too.
right? You know, you. No, but in terms of Democratic presidents, that's all you've had. So Republicans have had nothing but time. You've had Bush Sr., Bush Jr., you've had, I mean, you know, run the gamut with it. What have they done with that?
but
Nothing.
also-
You even,
We've had more Republicans than Democrats in office during our lifetime.
so
that's what I'm saying.
So that part is true, but
And
also,
yet there's
but also to the same thing that we're talking about here is the fact that if you had a political party, like if the Republicans received the majority of votes from Black people and delivered them elections, who's to say that they may not have changed their ways and or changed their thinking and or done more to help out Black people? Like that.
Yes.
That's my whole point.
But
Democrats.
But you saw what they did. You saw what they did with them racists. They were like, okay, well, y'all are riding with us. Cool.
Exactly.
That's where the votes are. We
Like-
got you. Republicans are known bullies when it comes to getting stuff passed.
I don't know
I'm
about
not
that.
saying. I'm not.
I don't know
Look,
about that.
what about Colin Powell, right? General Colin Powell, right? Republican.
Yeah.
Longer than I've been living. Now totally pretty much removed himself from the party with that. You telling me that in his lifetime, that the progress and the chance for progress with Black people was never there, to the point where he has to start calling out not just the act of racism, but the lack of an effort to even want to do that. Like, I guess for me, my question to you, Coney, is how did the Republican Party get to this point where it's super racist at this point and it's not even hidden?
that was their
so-
only. That's their only option at this
Right.
point.
Right.
That was their own. Because after Obama got elected twice, they had no other options because they were like, America, that whole pendulum in America is swinging to the middle. And when that happens, that is a natural Democratic vote. That's
Right.
just how it is.
The problem is that they can't win with ideas because they don't have any. They don't have any ideas. That's why they're making it hard for people to vote because they don't have any ideas. They're making things restricted because they don't have any ideas. They have to sit there and talk terrible about all these people, all the newer congressmen, like the squads and all this stuff, because they have no ideas. Like, people might not like what the squad does, but you know what they don't say? They don't say they don't have any ideas. They don't say, well, you know, that's a different perspective. They don't say, these people are working hard.
Well,
They don't
also,
say that.
Also to that same end, the squad is partially responsible for stuff not getting passed right now. But you know, we're not gonna talk about that because
We can talk about it. We can
But
talk about it.
are they responsible? Or
Oh,
are
we
they
can talk about
responsible
that.
for trying to
So-
create
talk about that.
and you have the
so-
old guard standing in the way?
So again, but again, to that same point, the last 4 years when 45 was in office, you have Republicans who were deemed progressive. You have Republicans who were deemed uber conservative. They didn't care. They all told the company line because we need to do whatever we got to do to get this passed. Now that Biden is in office and we have the ability to get stuff passed to ram shit down the throat.
That is, but they're not
Them
the
same dudes are
playing that, Coney.
yeah.
The
them
people
same dudes are riding the line.
moderates
They're
are
like,
the
yo, the
ones
party is
stopping
saying
those
no,
things.
we're not voting for it.
The moderates are the ones stopping those things, Coney. Like, it's not the far left. The far left ones have to do that because to make sure that something happens that actually is going to be sustainable or impactful. Like if you had it left up the whole mansion, hashtag whole mansion. If you had it left up the whole mansion, what do you think we're gonna get? We're gonna get the
West
same
Virginia.
lactose crap.
We
that
gonna
had before.
West Virginia.
Yep, they can't do that. We can't do the state. We can't do the whole state.
Why not? Why not? Tell us where we're wrong. Tell us where we're wrong.
We're wrong
And
because we're on Facebook Live. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
I just went corporate. He was like, I got sponsors. I got a reputation to hold out here.
Hello?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
West Virginia buys shoes too.
oh boy. That's funny.
So here's the thing. And my dad and I have talked about this ad nauseum over the last 4 or 5 years. We are where we are, like everybody here has pointed out. A black man became president, not once, but twice. And we are seeing the repercussions from the old guard and or the thinking behind the old guard, who has now raised up a new generation of kids, and they're raising up a new generation of kids of, this is our country.
Yeah.
And we want it back by any means necessary. And
They got complacent in their racism,
black,
and they're like,
that's exactly it. The fact that a black man became president was already shocking. The fact that he did it twice in a row, the gloves got to come off, and shit has to change. We need our country back. This is our country. We moved here from Europe, away from the tyranny of the European, to form our own country, and this is our shit. You know, we've enslaved indigenous people, we've enslaved black people, we've done everything that we could.
Killed the Mexicans.
Stay on top and gain power. And now we got a bunch of black people, a black man who half of America doesn't even recognize is even fucking American to begin with. Got elected president, not once, but twice. They're like, enough of this shit. The gloves got to come off. We need our shit back. And if that means bringing out the hoods, if that means bringing out the guns, if that means bringing out the dogs, if that means bringing out the fire hoses, all of it.
They will tear this place down before they let that happen.
Third time if they would have.
January 6th, they were going to burn that motherfucker down to the ground.
They will tear it down.
They were willing to burn the White House to the ground to prove a point.
And what's crazy about that, though, they were never willing, to Aji's point, bring ideas, because that's my whole point. If a Republican Party did, have a foundation of racism, and they just came out and were like, hey, okay, you guys do this. Guess what? Here's our ideas. Here's how we're going to make things better. And we're going to map this shit out and actually show you. Fine. Then you would have people saying, maybe let's give this a try. Local, state, national, all of that. That's not what has ever transpired. What has transpired, it's always been, we're going to go get the hoods and the threats of racism and the threatening phone calls and all of that stuff. Then the people bringing out the guns. The problem with that whole thing with January 6th, and for me personally, what I didn't like about it, other than the obvious, is that once bullets start flying, they start flying in every direction. Those same people will no longer have the bravado to say it with their chest at that point, because guess what? I know a bunch of black people are going to sit by and let you just shoot at them and lynch them and hang them and all that stuff. It's a different game now, you know, and you are having a group of people who are still trying to say, oh, but elections and laws, these people were past that at that point. What made me mad and really pissed me the fuck off is that they had a chance to nip that in the bud years ago, before 45. They allowed this to escalate to a point. They allowed people to ascend to positions.
Yeah, the same thing. That Tea Party response to Obama was disappointing. Wow. It was horrible.
Yeah.
I had people be like, "Nah, this is financial." I was like, "No, it's not." Like, no, it's not. No, it's not.
Yo, the Tea Party had nothing to do with money, dude. Nothing to do with
it. It did not. I think it's obvious now, but you'd be surprised at how many people were like, "No, this is a financial movement." I was like, "It's not. It's not. It's not."
Yeah, and the Civil War was about states' rights, huh?
Right.
Wait a minute, yo. No critical race theory on here, brother.
Yo, to that point, that's the inherent issue with America. America as a whole, Americans as a whole, we are sheep. We are cowards. And I say that under the guise that we take, and this on both sides of the aisle, we listen to our favorite talking head, we listen to our favorite radio station, we listen to our favorite news station, take whomever the talking head is, what they say and take it as the gospel. And as long as whatever's going on isn't directly affecting me and mine, Americans don't care. And
You're right. You're right about that for majority of Americans, but that's where I think either yourself or Maurice mentioned groupthink. I think people have to break out of those shells. But what you
Agreed.
just said is a billion spot on. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because we've gotten to that point where we're kind of all detached from reality. Like, we don't really see the reality of the world outside of America. We don't see reality of America outside of our own homes and our own group of friends. Like, we just, for whatever reason, we're just completely detached from reality.
Right.
And I don't know if I don't think it's the music. I don't know if it's TV. I'm not sure what it is, but we've gotten to this point where we don't see the truth anymore. We can't see what's actually happening. We can't even make a decision as a group of poor people to say, you know what, we need to change these rules to make this work for everybody. You got people who are right now complaining about medical expenses who are also the same people who are complaining about the Affordable Care Act. And I'm like, how does this make sense? You're right now feeling like you need to file for bankruptcy because you broke your leg at work and you can't afford the surgery that you had to get, and you want to stop this from happening, which would make sure that never happened to anybody again. That kind of thing doesn't make sense to me. The same when it comes to all kinds of other safety measures that people are, even if people don't believe in global warming and all that stuff, cool, whatever. But the fact remains is there is an obvious change happening. Now, whether we have something to do with it or it's just a natural cycle of Earth, whatever it is, we need to figure that out, and we're smart enough to do so. And then once we figure that out, we need to start trying to solve the problem. But instead, nobody wants to have that conversation because we're blinded by, no, we've been driving cars for years. It's fine. It's like, well, maybe not.
Hey, the same people who don't believe in climate change were the same people who didn't believe that cigarettes were harmful to your health, which are the same people who didn't believe in civil rights. And the common thread between all of these people is money.
It is.
It's money. It's the people.
That's the thing.
People.
But that's what I'm talking about. That was my point. The money doesn't even trickle down to us. So
not.
The majority of the people are blindly following. I know, but that's my point. For whatever reason, we are detached from reality because we think that the money that's being made at the top is somehow coming to us, and we are now those same rich folks.
You privatize the gains and socialize the losses.
Yeah, it's like the hillbillies.
Reagan introduced trickle-down economics, almost 40 years ago. Guess what? Trickle-down economics do not work. They do not work.
Well, they do that. Just the economics just get evaporated right back up before they ever hit the ground.
The whole premise of trickle-down economics is a joke. They say, the more money that the rich make, the more money the rich make, the more money the rich keep.
And they reinvest in themselves. I heard that they came up with
that. Or
they
go to space.
Napkin.
I'd like to thank all the Amazon employees and all of you who have Amazon Prime.
All the customers.
You paid for this.
You paid for
Y'all
this. You made this happen.
You paid for this. What a statement.
Yo, what a jerk.
Statement.
Jeff Bezos, if you listen, I'll take $100 million like Van Jones. I'll take it.
No, I don't want your blood money, Jeff. You keep your money.
I'll take it. I'll take it and flip it.
The safest Negro on the planet, Van Jones, got $100 million.
Wait, hold on. Yo, I thought Wayne Brady was the safest Negro on the planet.
Nah, man, Wayne Brady got a little street to him. Look, Van Jones would have never been.
Yeah, ever since that Chappelle skit, nobody ever look at Wayne Brady the same.
Van Jones could have never been like, is Van Jones gonna have to slap a bit? He could have never done that. He could have never.
Nah. He probably would have cried just talking about it. I'm so happy about. I'm like, yo, this dude is always crying about something, man. Get him off the TV.
Stop it.
Get him out of here, man. I like him too.
I don't hate him, of course. Yeah,
he's a solid dude.
But he is a very safe Negro in terms of like white people look at him and they feel safe with him.
Yeah, look.
In terms of like the way that he approaches things and the way that he tries to be fair with stuff. But I mean,
Van Jones.
Fair. I should say fair in quotes.
Van Jones makes Wayne Brady look like Malcolm X.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. But
Yeah, that's
yeah, it's just unfortunate, man. Like it's unfortunate to see, and there was so much evidence of it when it came to Trump being elected. Is all of the I don't want to classify them all as one group, but a large segment of the United States who are uh, lower on the socioeconomic scale and of a particular race all felt like because they elected this billionaire that somehow they were all billionaires now. And
Yep.
I'm like, wait a minute, y'all still aren't getting anything
that was
from
that
this.
was that was a direct correlation between the way that he made them feel and the way Obama made regular black people.
Yeah.
There's a direct correlation. Like how we felt when Trump was in office, that's how they felt for 8 years. And I know that it doesn't make any sense because you're like, Obama's a very sensible man. Obama did a lot of stuff that tried to help people out as much as he could.
Yeah, but we were never like racism is over because Obama was elected, but they were all like being poor is over now because Trump is elected.
I'm not
like,
saying
no,
that.
it's
I'm not
not.
saying that.
So-
I'm just
so-
saying that
so-
the
so
feeling
Maurice-
that they go ahead, Coney.
No, I was going to say, I understand what you're saying. I don't think that they felt that now that 45 got elected, they were no longer going to be poor or you know, not well off. I really just think they were just happy that we got this black man out of office. You know, like that. Like to me, that's what their goal was in 2016. Everything else be damned. Is we can't let. I mean, to them, that would have been the downfall of America. A black man got elected to the highest position in the world twice, and then we're going to let a woman be president too. like a black man twice, followed up by a woman. You know, the majority.
Not just any woman, that woman.
That woman.
It was
That woman. They hate that woman.
Than any woman.
Yeah.
I think
Like
She could be the most hated white woman on earth. Yeah.
the entire fabric of what they've been brought up on and how they believe would have been shattered to a billion pieces and never would have recovered. Ever.
Hence why they don't want critical race theory taught, because if something like that is taught, it's going to shatter everything. And not only is it going to do that, but it's going to lead the next generation to say, why don't they give reparations to black people?
So
I just don't understand the whole critical race theory anyway, but I get it. I get what it is. I don't understand how they're lumping that, which from what the original founder, creator of critical race theory, it's not the same. Teaching somebody historical facts is completely different than critical race theory.
Too, Maurice. It wouldn't even be taught until you get into college anyway.
Right.
And I thought it was legally based too. Like it really had a foundation in the law. And not actual like history. History of how
part of it is, and I'm gonna do a shameless plug real quick. My dad is the president of the NAACP down in Lakeland, Florida, and they actually had a forum on. Shout out, Colonel Coney. Just had a forum on this literally on Thursday, and it was talking about critical race theory. They had two professors. One of them is actually up here from Pittsburgh. I get everybody's name, and they had the superintendent of the Polk County Schools who was there. But ultimately, it was a representative, and his name is slipping my mind. He sent a letter to the governor asking for the superintendent, newly hired superintendent, to be fired from his position because here he is trying to have a discussion about critical race theory, and to him, critical race theory is nothing but teaching America to hate white people and teaching America to hate America as a country. When that's not even the semblance of critical race. The whole premise behind critical race theory is introducing and teaching facts about America, and not allowing the misinformation and the ignoring of facts to come into play to determine the outcome that we are here in America right now. So when you are teaching critical race theory, you are discussing racism, you are discussing bigotry, you are discussing discrimination, especially as it pertains to against Black people, and you are not letting it be whitewashed over while it being discussed. Now, one of the reasons why, to Aji's point, you generally don't talk about critical race theory until you get into college because of the complexity of it. But
Yep.
one of the reasons why most people don't want critical race theory taught in elementary, middle school, and high school is because it will then take away educators, or at least education systems and or school boards' ability to whitewash over things. It will allow educators to put in their own personal perspectives when talking about certain things. And the whole premise of critical race theory is that it eliminates the ability for somebody to interject their own personal thoughts about it, but really just speaks facts about things.
Let me
So-
because I want to slide back to the premise of what we were trying to discuss here before, which is blacks in the Democratic Party. We managed to get all the way to critical race theory and from blacks in the Democratic Party. I'll ask another one of these questions in terms of why you think black people, well, the future between black people and the Democratic Party, I should say. Just to get us back on track. What do you feel the Democrats have done to earn black people's vote moving forward?
Nothing. I
And
think
that's our
that
show. We'd like to thank everybody for coming out.
Look,
Yeah,
I literally was gonna put myself on mute and wait for the wait for the crickets. Because I know that Smallwood's a smart brother, I know that Franklin's a smart brother, but neither one of them have an answer to this one. Nothing.
Yeah,
Nothing.
nothing. I mean, they play black music when they get elected. I mean, I guess that's something we can look forward to. You know?
I mean, look.
Oh no.
And look, 45 was playing black music too. He was playing that Red Nation song by that dude out of Kansas City.
Is that? Yeah. Just
Did Simpsons drink?
all skin folk ain't kinfolk. But I digress. I think
yes.
that,
I don't think that there's anything that they can really do moving forward unless they start doing some drastic changes that are directly impactful to the black community, like they did with the AAPI community. I'd never seen anything
Come on,
pass so quickly.
Come on.
I was like, wait, we can pass anti-discrimination laws that
Come
quick?
on now.
Because of
And where is the
let's move on.
anti-black discrimination law?
Yeah, like
It hasn't
don't get
even
me
made
wrong,
it to the floor.
excuse
the
me.
attacks on the Asian community are horrible, and I'm not trying to make light of their plight at all.
Absolutely not.
But at the same time, we're talking, we'll say 400 days, give or take, of AAPI community hate that has been going on in America. Don't think that quite equates to 400 years. I'm just saying. Now, I don't think that they should wait, but also don't think that we should have had to wait this long. And still, now that they could pass something like that in our face,
Wait a second.
and we just still sit back and be like, oh
Man,
yeah,
you
well,
Maurice, you got Juneteenth. What are you mad about?
you're right. You're right. Fair
Yo,
point.
that brings up another beef I got.
Fair
Right?
point. So Maurice, fair
So
point.
no, not the
I mean,
Juneteenth
that's
thing,
not even
but-
a whole Black American thing, like that whole, they don't even understand Juneteenth, which made it ridiculous to me. I was like, it sounds cool, but that was mainly a Texas thing. That wasn't like a whole United States thing.
It was.
Like,
And
what are we talking
wanna-
about here?
I want to jump in real quick. So here's a beef I have. That whole AAPI thing, right? So where are our allies, right? So when the things were happening with Asians, black community
Tom
jumps
Scott
in all
somewhere.
over.
Cotton,
Yeah, right.
whatever that guy's name is.
Tim Scott. Yo, I'm not gonna let
Tim
you
Scott,
talk.
yeah.
I'm gonna let you talk about it like that. Tim
we
Scott.
we
Go ahead, Antoine.
No, you're good. My point is, I get to it quick this time. We don't really have a lot of allies that publicly come out and support us. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody's a keyboard warrior. Everybody talks a great game. How long are we going to continue to wait for progress? How long are we could talk about a future state of things and where we would like to see it at. But I feel like there's a strong segment of people, to Coney's point earlier, if it's not affecting them, they don't care, and therefore, there aren't, cops killing Asian kids, that are 12-year-old playing at a park, or choking them out in a car with their baby and blowing their brains out, or he's trying to break up a fight for any number of reasons and shoot them in the back and getting up all these different things that happen, mentally challenged, and you know, the lady goes and kills him, or naked eating ice cream in your living room and she accidentally walks into the wrong house, don't even realize that ain't her couch, her painting, her this, the way the alignment is different, and shoots this guy, you know, and murders him in cold blood and wants to still get out. You know what I'm saying? There's nobody screaming for that with Black people because it's not happening.
I disagree though. I think people are doing that, but I think it's always reported on differently when we do it. When we do it, oh, it's borderline rioting. They're in the streets, they're aggressive, they're going to start looting and destroying things. But then
with George Floyd, it was that way because
even post George Floyd, you know, after kind of the anger subsided a little bit with that, and people were still continuing to protest, it was still more looked at as a violent uprising than it was a standing for our people. And so when that happens, you start changing the narrative of, oh, these people just want get back for what happened. That you don't, for whatever reason, we don't get the change that we need. Whereas when it comes to the Asian community, you had the same people out there, instead of with Black Lives Matter shirts on, they just had AAPI Lives Matter or whatever, you know, they had on.
Right.
And because it was for a different group, America was like, yeah, you know what, you're right. We've been kind of mean to you guys. Let's change this. Like, for whatever reason, everything we do is looked at as violent. It doesn't matter what we do and how we say it.
That's narrative.
That's an interesting point, Maurice. The fact that, because to me, that is a true statement from the idea of a lot of things that have been put into law and put into place have been a deterrent from the belief that we're about that get back, right? We're about to go back and, like, Black people weren't allowed to have guns. Why? Because we enslaved them. Black people aren't allowed to do this. Why? Because we enslaved them. You see what I'm saying? Like, there was a lot of that in legislation and stuff moving forward. And that's an interesting point of view, saying that from the standpoint of every single like protest being seen as a violent thing. Therefore, it's about getting back. And if it's about get back and revenge, if you put it as revenge as opposed to justice, it kind of validates why you wouldn't get anything for doing what you're doing. That's an interesting perspective. That's something that I hadn't heard anybody say before. That's really insightful. Yeah, but I mean, just to answer Antoine's question about all those other things, their answer would be, that's different. And that's it. That's their only.
Well, I mean, you know, so Maurice brought up a great point of the focus that needs to be switched in America. So when Black people do it, you know, we are rioting and whatnot. So whereas other groups are doing it, they're protesting. And you know, the thing that I've always said that you know, I hear from white people, especially when stuff was going on in Minneapolis, going on in Seattle, was, you know, their stance, and I've heard it. I've literally had conversations with people up here saying, you know, it's horrible that an innocent Black man was killed, but destroying property has to stop. And I said, see, that's the inherent problem right there. Your mindset and your thinking is all wrong. You know, your mindset should be, you know, it's horrible that property is being destroyed, but killing innocent Black men has to stop. Like you need to change your focus from the standpoint that, you know, okay, buildings are fine. Let's just say that every building downtown got destroyed. Buildings can be rebuilt. They have insurance for that shit. A life cannot be replaced in any shape, form, or fashion, especially an innocent life at the hands of a group of people whose job is to protect and to serve. Their job, like, and that's the thing. I've heard people say, well, Black people kill Black people all the time. What's the difference? The difference is the fact that you're a police officer.
My job isn't to follow the law.
Correct.
That's your job.
It's not.
That's your job. To do that. I should follow the law, but that's not my job.
Correct.
That's your job.
Hey, all buildings matter.
Oh boy.
All buildings matter.
Buildings matter, yeah.
Yeah, you can burn down a Target, but all buildings matter.
That's part of the definition of white privilege. That's part of the definition of the thing that white people need to understand and realize is what's wrong with this country. Antoine brought it up, Maurice brought it up, I just brought it up, of us not having champions, us not having allies. And we don't have that at the end of the day because, you know, if you're a white, you don't have to speak up for anybody else because you being white gives you a leg up on everybody else in every situation for the rest of your life.
Benefit of the doubt. That's what it's
That's
called.
it.
They get,
That's it.
they get benefit of the doubt
Ooh,
for every
ooh,
one of them.
yes, excellent way to put that.
That's the
Yep.
one. Well, that's the one. Any situation, and benefit of the doubt is the difference between you getting bail and you not. It's the difference between you getting a loan and you not.
Yeah.
Right.
Difference between kids being kids, or those are thugs and
Those are thugs.
vicious criminals,
Mm.
and they need to go to jail.
benefit of the
Exactly.
doubt is what they get, and that's
I mean, that's the thing. Like, white people don't understand. They've lived a life of privilege. They were so obtuse to, they didn't even realize that it was privilege. To them, it was everyday life. It was normal. The fact that they have white skin in this country makes them privileged. You know, if I gave you the option of living to be 50 and keeping your and being white, or living to 100, but you had to be black, you can't name a white person now, or anybody for that matter, who would choose to be black. You can live to be 100, but you live to be 50. Every white person is going to choose 50 every day of the week and twice on Sundays.
I don't know. I'm choosing black personally, but I've
You're
already made
black.
it.
I
I
said
know.
white.
I'm already
Black,
black.
yeah.
Right.
Very black.
I would stick with us,
He
man.
said every white person.
I know.
Not, yeah. But this is,
That's
but
true,
all
though.
these things are why I believe the Democratic Party, not even just the Democratic Party, but the political party in America has completely failed, you know, the black community.
Mm.
Like, both parties take our votes for granted. None of them ever have any actual expectation to do what they say they're going to do, or to help or fix anything.
Mm.
Because there have been several opportunities for them to make these changes. But there's always an excuse of why, you know, oh, well, it's just not the time. We can't do this. There's no money for it. Okay, but we can fight this war. Cool, whatever. Oh, we just can't do it. You know, we don't have the time. There's no money for it. Yeah, but we can bail this group out right here. There's never time for us. It's always wait. You know, I had this let me say this delicately. This person in a circle with me that you know, we were having some difficult conversations on race and discrimination and how that impacts the workplace. And it got to the point where this person was like, you know what? I don't think we are ready to have this kind of conversation yet. Let's just wait. And it blew my mind, because I was like, man, even in their best effort to try to help and make changes for people who aren't white and male, they still fall very far short of just addressing, just having that conversation. I'm not even asking you to do anything right now. I'm just asking you to talk about it. Just act like it is happening, because it is happening. Recognize it, and then we can figure something out later. But what they want to do is completely ignore the fact that it's even happening. Just wait. You suffer while I get my feelings together. And then once I get my feelings together, then you can maybe stop suffering, actual suffer. Like, that's ridiculous to me.
That's the inherent issue, is that having that conversation makes them acknowledge the ills of this country's past, of their ancestors' past, and even possibly of their current transgressions.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want they don't want to acknowledge that. They don't want that burden now on their shoulders. They want to continue living their lily white life, thinking that, you know, slavery ended, you know, hundreds of years ago. You know, the Civil Rights Act got passed in 1965. You know, black people, you know, slavery's been over forever. You know, you guys have been able to vote since 1965. Get over yourselves. You guys should be on the same equal footing as us. Let alone the fact that, you know, this country is over 300 years old. And, you know, again, you can give a one-legged man in an ass kicking contest a 3-mile head start in a 3-mile and a quarter race. He gonna beat you in that 3-mile quarter race because he had a 3-mile fucking head start.
I'm confused on what kind of competition that is now. Is it an ass kicking competition or a race? Now I'm confused. I'm just kidding. No, I hear you though. I hear you. It's disappointing. It's disappointing because I know the Democrats see what's going on, but instead of coming out in large numbers and combating that whole critical race theory narrative, they want to continue with there's the only black history is you were savages in Africa, slaves, Martin, Rosa, Obama, end of Black history.
February.
Like there's nothing else for them to talk about. And
Juneteenth.
they're comfortable with it. And now Juneteenth. Yeah, which they still haven't quite figured out what that means.
No,
worry
they
about
haven't.
They're just like, it sounds cool.
Don't worry about
You
it.
know, and
But
so-
again, like they do that because at the end of the day, if they have to do anything more extensive than that, then it means them acknowledging their current wrongs, let alone the wrongs of their ancestors, let alone the wrongs of their grandparents, their parents, their current family members. Most people nowadays, look, they are perfectly fine with passing the buck. You know what? My people did some messed up stuff back in the day. They owned slaves, and I'm sorry about that. But what about you and the discrimination that you currently play right now with the power that you wield right now currently? Folks don't
wait. Let's not talk about that yet.
Gotta gather your feelings. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
I was in a place, and a couple months ago, and these white people were having this conversation, right? It was this kind of place where I'm just being vague about it while we're streaming live here, right? And they were challenged with some of the transgressions that they had made recently, right? And the only thing is, oh, that's difficult feedback to hear. And when challenged with that statement and said, well, how do you feel for the people who have to live with the decisions that you're making for them? You were being the aggressor of that. Silence. Not one of them in that room out of 15 of them said a thing. They were just silent. Rather than admit, hey, you know what? Yeah, I could have approached this differently. I was wrong, et cetera, it's just silent. Meaning you are willing to stand with being problematic and I'm just going to say here, racist, you know what I'm saying? And your views and ideologies, knowing that it's wrong, knowing that it's not something that anybody should experience, but because it's not happening to you and you wield the power to start and stop it when you feel like it or when you feel threatened, it's okay.
So would you all say that from the standpoint of looking at that as a racial context, taking it in from that perspective, as far as the two political parties, would you say that they are both equally racially blind, or that one is much more blind than the other one, or one is much more, how would you view that in terms of their relationships with the Black community from that standpoint?
Well, prior to answering that question, and this is my own personal opinion, and I've had discussions with you all about this, I think that we have to define clearly the difference between racial and prejudice, or racist and prejudice.
Sure.
There's a distinct difference. Far too often people are labeled as a racist, and you're not being racist, you're just being prejudiced. But again, I guess to answer your question, let me think on it.
Yeah, it's a hard question.
I think they're equally racially blind just because the majority of their makeup is old and white. And so I think that they just have that difficulty really understanding all races and all people. Whereas I think even though they may be either racist or prejudiced, but younger and white, most times, just because of the way pop music and pop culture and hip hop has really got into the mainstream, they have a different understanding of Black people. Because even at a very basic vanilla level, they've had to in some way include themselves in the Black community and in Black culture to a very, and so where the difference is, I think when it comes to to like older,
I can't. Yo. I mean, I'm not small boys laughing, good man. I see what you did there. I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
It was the vanilla, huh?
Right.
I was like,
Great,
come on, man.
great entendre there, sir. Well played.
Yeah, like I think that in the older generation, there was so much separation in the way they grew up that a lot of those things that they learned then are ingrained in them. Like even if they've maybe grown past it to a degree, just similar to older Black men that you meet. Every old Black man that I've ever met is 100% skeptical of every white person they see. I don't care how well they know them, how long they worked with them, how long they've been their neighbor.
Yo,
It doesn't matter.
they
They look at them and they're like, at
They
any
have
given time,
mauve
I
and
will knock you out.
turquoise toilets at their house. They have mauve and turquoise toilets at their house because they refuse to even sit on anything white.
Yeah, like, and so I think
That
that
might be the case
generation.
of y'all. Go down south. Go
Yeah,
go go
no,
go
I
to
know
an
exactly
old
what
black
you're
regular
talking
house
about.
down south. Mob toilet seat.
And so I think that they are racially blind the same equally, just because of the makeup of their parties. They're all the same group. It's just they have different quote unquote ideologies, but they're really the same. They just don't understand. And so I think as we continue to get a younger group elected, I think we'll start to see change happen for the better. For whatever reason, we've gotten stuck in this. We got to elect the oldest person ever. Like, why do you think people really loved Kennedy and people really loved Obama? Both fairly young dudes when they were elected president.
Clinton as
Like,
well.
Clinton as well.
Yeah.
So people really, like, America really has the opportunity to progress forward when we put young leadership in charge. Our thing is we want to keep old folks in charge that really aren't speaking to the generation who's got to actually go out and implement these things that y'all are trying to decide on.
Yeah.
But it's not just old, it's also old and white. And we have to stop thinking that old and white equals the solution.
Or equals right. Old and white does not equal right.
Yes, that's right. And I say that because as people talk about DE&I across the board now, it's like the most popular gimmick. But I think that to foster a true inclusive environment, you have to be willing to take off your blinders and respect your own biases and understand where you fall short. So there are people who are biased against old. There's people who's biased against how people self-identify. There's people who's biased against obviously white, black, Asian, whatever. And it's like, look, if we're truly going for best and progressive and actually trying to take this thing to a greater future state, the current old guard has to go. That's the only real proper solution with that. I think Maurice, that was you just, or Coney just mentioned younger people. Younger people are the future, you know. Part of that is us, part of that is the generation coming behind us now to actually implement those changes. There is time. There's no better time than the present. And as long as we keep leaning on old and white is right, you'll end up with the Biden, you know, and I'm not dissing Biden. I think he's a nice guy and all that sort of thing, but why were our choices so short? Why were our choices so short?
I think
Biden is a better option than Trump, but Biden to me is a sucker.
Yeah.
And I only say that. I'm serious.
Yo.
And I'll make my point quick.
Yo,
I
Secret
say that
Service gonna
because
be at your house in 47 minutes.
that's fine, yo. And I'll be like, look, watch the recording. I didn't threaten that man's life at all. I just said he's a sucker, and that's my opinion. I'm just saying, he is still on this old 1970s. Let's come together. Let's reach across the aisle. Let's cooperate with one another. Let's do all this other stuff. It's not that kind of world anymore in politics. And because he's stuck in his ways, he's thinking, oh, I can just keep talking to Joe Manchin and things are going to work out. No, it's not that kind of party anymore. And until he gets aggressive, he's gonna keep being just kind of this. To me, this kind of floundering dude out there.
So real quick to that same end, and I'm not speaking. I'm speaking to a bunch of educated men who know this already. The playbook that Joe Biden is using right now, he got it from great teaching, and I say great teaching is that. If you look at the majority of the people he's appointed to cabinet positions, you look at to the majority of appointments that he's made, if you look at the legislation that he's brought across right now, he learned all of this when he was vice president for Obama.
That's true.
And again, I'm not disagreeing with you from the standpoint that, you know, he's doing it from an old white man's perspective. He's also doing it from the perspective of a president and a presidency that most people would consider fairly successful for 8 years. And, you know, he's thinking to himself, look, if I can recreate what Barack Obama did for this country, my legacy as a president is going to end up being all right. Now, with that being said, things have changed both ideologically, philosophically, and actually in this country from 2008 through 2016 when Barack Obama was president, things have changed drastically. And to your point, I agree with you in the fact that Joe Biden is not somebody who I see keeping up with the times, keeping up with the current. But also with the same thing being said, I also don't think that politicians in general, and it goes back to what Mauricio said, what Antoine said, what I've said, what I've said is that the future of this country is the youth. And youth being younger than us, we are all relatively young, 40, 39, 37, 38, we're also relatively young. We still have at least another life left to go. Live one life, we have another one left to go. But the problem about it is that people inherently are afraid of change, and being afraid of change is what's going to continue keeping this country in the place that it currently is, and will continue being the downfall of this country on a local, national, and global landscape.
I think that
Yep.
I think that just to get back to the question at hand in terms of blindness racially. I mean, the Republicans. I was gonna make a joke that was terrible. Like they don't even see race. They don't because they don't even deal with like Black issues. Period.
But so you're not wrong.
But
You're not wrong. I
know.
literally had and I'm sorry for forgetting. I literally had a conversation with my dad earlier about that exact same thing. Is that when you have that much money, you have that much power, you have that much influence, whether you're born into it or whether or not it was earned, you don't think about the plights of others because it's of non-consequence to you. Like you, I mean, if you are if you're white, most time, 9 times 10, you're not thinking about what it's like to be Black. If you are rich and white, you're almost guaranteed not to think about what it's like to be Black. If you're white, rich, and powerful, what need do you have to think about what it's like to be Black?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like just from that.
I don't see color. I'm rich.
Yeah.
I see all these checks. I see the money.
That's how they are.
Look, I don't see Black and white. I'm not a racist. I don't see Black and white. All I see is green, bitch.
Yeah. All I see is a bunch of you broke motherfuckers.
How do you finish every sentence with I'm rich? This is
There it is.
That's the Daffy Duck consequences. As long as I'm rich.
As long as I'm rich. There it is.
There it is.
But that's how they are. Like, there's nothing worse than that. I don't see color. Really?
Well,
what do you see?
Well, that is a huge problem, right? But when it comes to being blind or being, how can I say it? Like maybe underestimating how important certain stances are, certain issues are. Democrats are definitely they suffer from that very badly. I don't think that they understand fully. Like for instance, they have not passed. Going back to the other bill that they passed for the Asians, they have not passed the George Floyd bill. When it comes to Joe Biden getting asked about police, and people feel everybody has different views of how the defund the police argument goes, but he hasn't even addressed. I think his only addressing of that was we're going to give the police more money, and it's like we've been doing that for 40, 50 years. That's not going to help. And we're the
economics and student loans,
and
which is
and we're the people who got
the Black
elected,
community way more than
listening.
anybody else.
You know what I mean? And you're not listening to your constituency that got you elected. So it's like when it comes to that issue.
When you're that high up, you don't have to.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with what
you have to, except for 2 months out of the year. Right before the election for a couple months, you stir it up, you talk about it, and then as soon as it's over, what were you guys talking about again?
It's the reason I have hot sauce in my bag. Wait
a second. I got you, Kamala. What more do you want from me?
It's the reason I got hot sauce in my bag.
I think that's the Democratic issue where I think that Biden hasn't learned his lesson from the Obama era. Is he pre-Obama? He was used to both sides working together and compromising and figuring things out. When Obama got elected, I don't think he had ever seen such stalemate happen in politics. He was kind of like, I think he was shocked, but he's stuck as in that pre-Obama era when it has actually gotten worse since Obama was president. And he's still, and I think that's where Joe Biden falls short, is that he isn't willing to be a bully, because that's what he's going to have to be to get anything done and anything passed. He's going to have to bully these people. He's not going to, he can't compromise and have these nice, sweet conversations. And like, I'm everyday Joe. Yeah, you may be Amtrak Joe, but you're getting, never mind.
Getting railroaded. Getting railroaded.
Hey, hold on. Let me. Okay, so we're gonna do a final go around because we could talk about this for God knows how much longer.
I got 6 hours. What you got?
I got. So
Fine. I gotta take my kids swimming.
so we're gonna go around, at least from me, sweeping up through, and then I'll go last. So Antoine, last word on Blacks in the Democratic Party.
My last words is Blacks have to hold the Democratic Party accountable, but on a different level than what they're accustomed to doing. I think the Democratic Party, there's a saying that people say that nobody owes you shit, but in this case, people voted you in, and they voted you in based on certain principalities and things that you were supposed to execute and get done. And if people aren't going to do that, then it's time for a new solution. What that solution is, I don't know, but I know that it's time for change and they have to do better.
Coney Cone.
Black people need to stop being so blindly allegiant to a political party that only cares about them during election cycle. Do your research, do your homework, find out what it is about an individual candidate. Stop voting a straight ticket Democrat. And I'm not telling you to vote straight ticket Republican. Do your research, look into each individual candidate and vote based upon candidates who fit your ideals and your ideology. Waiting on a political party to be savior in this country, in this world, because it's not going to happen.
Maurice.
To Black people, I would say, keep your eyes open. Like Brandon said, keep doing your research, keep actually finding out who these people are, and don't just vote because they're blue, and don't just not support because they're red. Figure out who they are, what they support, and what they're trying to do, and what's best for you and your family and your interests. And to the Democratic Party, you owe us. You owe us. It's just real. It's just real talk. To the whole party, you owe us. So start doing what you say you're going to do, or what you're going to find is you're going to end up being just like the Republican Party, where you're going to be wishing you had us, and we're going to be long gone. And so keep trying not to teach the critical race theory, because you think, oh, they may find out the Democrats were in power and we were against civil rights and all that other stuff. Keep playing that game, and you're gonna take the L in the long run.
First of all, before I start on my point, the "you owe me" in the background from Coney was spot on.
No, come on. We got on this. I'm sorry.
Oh, my eyes. Okay. But, I mean,
Something.
owe me back like
you owe your tax. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway. All right.
It's appropriate.
My final word. Much like I feel about America, Black people are in an abusive relationship with the Democratic Party, meaning that they're not sure what the world would be like without them, because they're kind of their supporter in this case, quote unquote. At the same time, when they're in the House, they're completely at the whims and the mercy of a person who might come home and give you gifts, or might come home and give you hooks. It's been. I am famously and maybe sometimes infamously an independent voter, and an independent person, meaning that I don't tie myself to any political party. But my reasoning for it is really simply that I feel like they don't relate to what we're going through, and I don't feel like they relate to or understand the issues that really capture the Black community and what they can do to help, because they can help. I think that they have the resources and we have the ability to be able to do so if we were a priority. The problem becomes, like many people have already said, we're only a priority for 2 months. We're not a priority for 2 years. We're not somebody who they'll pass a sweeping legislation to help. We're not ones that we're not the ones that they tend to focus on in terms of like their actual thing, because they always backpedal into this, well, we're all Americans thing. We're all going to be able to come up. We're all going to be able to do this. We're all going to be able to do that. They didn't say that when it came to passing gay marriage. They didn't say that when it came to doing the AAPI thing. They didn't say that when it comes to, but they'll say that when it comes to George Floyd, because it's, you know, target matters. You know, target matters. You know, the perspective of us not appearing to be racist in terms of not including white people in something and only doing something specifically for Black people. Obama had to do that for 8 years. He had to sit there and he had to basically eliminate his Black agenda as the America's president. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that as a president, not all Americans are equal. They're supposed to be. The problem is that we haven't gotten that equity. We never have. And to be honest, unfortunately, the way I see it, maybe we never will. So anyway, shout out to Hampton University. Y'all know what it is. Like us, follow us on Facebook, we're The Black Advancement. On Twitter, we're at BA Inc. 44. On IG, we're BA_Inc_44. And then there's always the website, which is blackadvancement.com. Appreciate all y'all. Check us out on YouTube as well. That was a somber way to end this.
Shout out to Nas and Genuine.
Gotta give them their credits, man.